Hey, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Change Physician Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Kevin Cuccaro, and I'm here this evening with my co-host, Dr. Melissa Cady. And on today's episode, we are going to be talking about some really deep, complicated, substantial matters important to not just physicians, but everyone. Dr. Cady, such a pleasure to see you today.
You see my vein almost about to pop out of my forehead.
I'm trying to make this a serious podcast here. And you
Well, I somehow found it humorous.
We're up in the game, and we're podcast is this big thing. So we are now being extra professional here. There it is. That's your professional face. We're ready. We're ready. So are you ready to have the serious discussion?
I'm ready. I just had to get all my funny laughing done. And right now my muscles are aching on the side of my face.
All right. Well, so folks, we do joke around a lot about, but this is actually a serious topic. Not serious in the life and death and crying ways, but I think a serious in a way that it really makes a difference, particularly if you are a newer physician or you're a physician that is feeling kind of trapped. Maybe you have the debt bonds of who knows how much money that you now like, oh my God, I have all these student loans. But really comes down to the distinguishing characteristic between what are wants and what are needs. And the reason I wanted to bring this up, Melissa, is because, again, we are in the same sort of physician Facebook groups, and you see the morass of physicians out there, and there's this common angst around many different things. And oftentimes you'll feel people who are feeling completely overwhelmed. They aren't in control. They're burning out in I think we've talked about burnout in the past, and this idea that they don't have control of their lives, their schedules, etc. And one of the things that really, really will keep you trapped is if you are in debt and if you do not have cash flow, or more importantly, the thing that we call FU money, which is the money that allows you to basically choose whether or not you are going to stay somewhere. Now, and that concept is really important because you can have a crap ton of debt, but if you have cash reserves, you still have the opportunity to leave where you are at. And just understanding that you can leave provides a massive, massive change in your quality of life. And one of the things to get there, though, is you have to be able to distinguish between wants or needs. And a want is something that you want, obviously. It is something extraneous. It's something that would be great to have, but it's not a necessary thing. Versus a need, that's like, you have to have a roof over your head, you have to have food, you have to have, whatever minimal debt coverage, etc. Those are things that you need. And the reason that frustrates me is you see these people like, oh, I hate my job and I hate this clinic and I hate this stuff. And people are like, well, you need to reduce your expenses. Like, well, I have to put my kids in private school. They can only be in private school. Oh, I can't move and I can't take another job because I have to live in a 5-bedroom. I mean, is this? It's just absolutely nuts. Some of the extra extraneous bounds that people put them in because they can't actually distinguish between wants versus needs. And being able to recognize that there are some things that you need, but everything outside of that becomes a want. And those are where you can trim, you can move, that provides you the flexibility. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I've never used the word morass, and so I had to look it up. So I'll help the viewers or listeners realize that, if maybe I made them feel good because I know it and I don't. Or I'm helping them out because they don't know and they need to know. So it says either an area of muddy or boggy ground, like under a bridge when it gets wet and muddy, and it's called a morass. But then it's also a complicated or confused situation. So she would become lost in a morass of lies and explanations. So I've never used that word, but now I've heard it. So now I know what it is.
Now you know, and knowing's half the battle.
Yeah, it's not because you become more of an ass. It's morass, like it's a complicated or confused situation.
Exactly. Oh my gosh.
So there's our lesson for the day. So I had a couple thoughts on that. And whenever there's a moment where you say, I have to, and it something that, you know, all of us can use this kind of reflection and take a moment. But that one ultimate word that creates a sense of awareness, and not that it's always easy to kind of dive into and understand yourself and why you do what you do, but asking asking why do I feel I have to have this or need to do, we say need to, but it might be it's just a want and not a true need. Like having water when there's a snowvid in Austin, Texas. We need water. But when it comes to wanting things, you have to ask, okay, is this a reflection of my insecurities, my feeling that people are going to judge me and that I have to keep up with the Joneses? There are so many things that are drivers for different people that you have to have enough, you know, and we were talking earlier about age in our other little episode, or Monday Motivations, but you know, you start getting a little perspective, but it's only because you can stop and think and understand and have more awareness and recognize maybe your propensity for certain things or your habits, or maybe the mistakes you've made over and over again that probably weren't serving you. And those are the things that might help you understand why, what's your driver. And sometimes things are very, you can state it, it's explicit, but implicitly, I mean, there might be some other beliefs and values that you've never really said that might be driving some of this wanting. What do you think about that?
Oh, I love it. No, and I think because what you've done is you've defined like a golden rule. And I love those things that are periods where you can spark that level of awareness that cause you to question, to pause that automatic behavior, and then create this moment where there's a choice point right now. Because if you don't create that awareness and you don't create a choice point, you are going to default to whatever that automatic behavior is. And if automatic behavior is going to follow what we've already established, right? It's going to be the well-worn trail. So I love that, because you're like, anytime you're saying I have to have that, the trigger then becomes, if I say I have, then I'm going to ask why.
Yeah.
And I need to be able to define why. And if I couldn't, I may actually have to do, the whole 5 why exercise where you go why versus why that, and you start digging down to what the root reason is.
Mm-hmm.
But that provides a big opportunity, because the vast majority of time when people say I have to do this, you don't have to. You're choosing to do that.
Yeah.
And again, like the wants versus needs thing is moving away from haves to choices. Again, that is a big mindset awareness piece, and certainly it helps with burnout in many different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I love it. I love that, because it just provides a very easy way to grab attention and to allow you to choose to change your behavior or not, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to, but at least you're aware that there's a choice there.
Yeah, it just sparked a thought of like when I was in pain fellowship, and you think about it's kind of like a lot of things in life, like there's your society around you influences you whether you realize it or not. And even like, what is a life that you live? Are you supposed to have children? Are you supposed to get married? Are you supposed to have that job that pays a lot of money? Like, there's all these internal expectations that are not necessarily driven by you, but kind of maybe how people raised you, like on you're only good enough if you do this or that, or just all these expectations, I guess, socially. But I thought about even during my pain fellowship, and when a lot of physicians come out of their training, and it's just kind of like expected that people work full time. We've talked a lot about this on our podcast, but I had a moment of, when you talk about want or need, like a lot of people think I need to go get a full-time job. I need that good job. And for some reason, I had a lot of cognitive dissonance, I guess would be the right term for what I was recognizing was, first of all, in the pain world, that's another element, but I felt like it just, this whole full-time and giving of your soul, and there's nothing wrong with, doing good things to try to help people and whatnot, but I recognized that I was consumed by my work, and I needed some free time. I needed some freedom, some flexibility, and this idea of do I really need to go do pain because I did a pain fellowship in the traditional sense? Do I really need to do full time? And when the feeling that I had was like, no, like I didn't know how to put it into words at the time. I just felt like, why would I need to go full time? I mean, at the time I was single and I didn't have any, other things tying me in certain directions. So, giving myself permission to not follow the path of everyone else around me, even if it didn't make sense to them, because they're being, they may just choose to be full-time, but they just kind of think that's what you're supposed to do. You give yourself, you should give back full time because you got trained. You should, give back to, I've heard all these crazy things, but, anyway, so it made me really think about need versus want. And I felt like I really needed to feel some freedom for my sanity. And I wanted to travel. It wasn't a necessity, but I think I felt, because after 10 years of training and working full-time to double full-time jobs and being in an unhealthy marriage and getting out, and like I needed that space. Yeah. And so it's interesting how you can interchange the word need and want, and you can rationalize it
pretty easily.
Yeah.
But being able to distinguish them is, I guess there's a level of maturity and awareness there, right? Needs are not wants and wants are not needs. And if you can distinguish between the two of them, that will provide you. That's one of the big things. I mean, we talk about like foundational things of what are like key. Mm-hmm. And we've said awareness is paramount. You have to be able to be aware that there's something beyond, or at least to be aware that there's something that you don't know, or have an awareness of that you actually have a choice. But wants versus needs is the other big one, because man, people just get trapped by that so often.
Yeah.
And I feel really lucky, because where I grew up, in the way I grew up, there was I didn't felt like I was forced. Like there was never this expectation of, the only thing that was expected it was just like, you're going to go to college. That was it. It was like, oh, okay. And so it was just such a given thing. You just knew you were going to do it. Everybody in my family went to college, blah, blah, blah. But other than that, it was just like, it was kind of owning your own path. You just did your own thing. And I think as a parent now, I don't necessarily think that's always the best thing, because I think if you can there's things that I was completely unaware of, mm-hmm. That I didn't recognize were important then, that actually are, and may not be for the right reasons, but they actually are important. They make a difference. And I wish I'd known about those a little bit earlier, but overall, I think I'm glad that I didn't have that. You're going to do this and you're going to do this. Like you talked about relationship and the ending of a relationship. I know people who were defined pretty early on that there was an expectation that they were in a relationship. We're talking in high school. Yeah. Like they should be dating people. Yeah. And that if they weren't in a relationship, then there was something. It was like, oh, if they broke, it's like, oh yeah. It's so weird. Yeah. Like it was bizarro, and it was completely bizarre to me. And it's still bizarre to me that people would define who you are by who you are with, or that you're simply with someone. And then if you're not, then that somehow there's some
loser.
I'm like, maybe I was a loser or whatever, because I just did my own thing and was like, didn't feel like you need to do it. And I still don't necessarily. I don't know. It's crazy. Just absolutely nuts how these expectations can kind of subtly influence you to believe that what are maybe wants, or maybe what are someone else's wants, are somehow your needs.
Ooh, yeah, that's this whole, it's weird, because there's a give and take in some ways, and relationships, obviously. I mean, two adults living together that are very different people, there's even there, it's like you don't want to, it's like you still want to be your person and tend to your needs, and a lot of times there's the most basic needs both people need, but when it comes to just like your desires and wants and that give and take, sometimes people, kind of lose themselves. And you can probably talk about codependence and whatnot, but it's a slippery slope there. If learning, and I think every personality is different. I think genders and just the dynamics between two different types of people that you have to make sure that you establish some boundaries, which, for people that tend to want to please, that can be tricky. So, I know we're talking about needs versus wants, but sometimes you fall into the trap of accommodating other people's wants that are not needs, and to the extent that you lose yourself, and that's not healthy either. So thoughts
No,
about that?
that's a whole other episode. I was just thinking about
I
that
know.
because that leads into a conversation, and it leads into the story of someone I was dating and how I went with a class with them, and it wasn't even my class in college. And I sat down and I started taking notes in the middle of this class because it was such a great class, and it was about relationships. But I'll
Yeah.
save that for, maybe we'll do a changed physician episode on relationship wisdom.
Yeah, no,
Or not.
boy, I've learned a lot. Some things I can share, some things not.
Well, wisdom, what lived experience, right? So I guess we can call it relationship wisdom. We can pull that out another episode, but I will say
Yeah,
that.
yeah, absolutely. Well, any last thoughts about the wants versus needs before I take us out?
No, I mean, I think it's a quick episode. I do think it's really important. I hope people don't gloss over that. And I really want to call out again what you said, Melissa, was this idea. If you are saying that word, I have to have this, I have to, pause when you're saying that and either do it out loud or not, but actually say, well, why? And just start asking that question of yourself. And I think if you have a level of awareness that you can kind of rise above and kind of see your situation, what you'll find is a lot of those things that you're saying have to's are things you're choosing to. They may not be easy choices, but most of what we do in life is a choice. And if the more you're aware of that, the less you're going to feel trapped by circumstance.
Yeah, because you can make different choices to
Yep.
get yourself out of the situation,
Absolutely.
whether it's quickly or not. No, I absolutely agree. And it's not, I think if you can find someone that is emotionally intelligent, that has the capacity to kind of help bring yourself outside of your situation and help you evaluate yourself, whether that's professionally or just, close friends or family, sometimes that can be an additional benefit when you're trying to ask why. What is it? I'm having trouble understanding why I would do this. And some reflection could come off someone else. And you never know in conversation how you can start realizing and connect the dots. That can be really helpful too. So, well, great. I love this stuff because I have to question myself at times on what's really a need versus a want. So I hope you all enjoyed this episode. If you have any comments or questions, you can always reach out to us at thechangedphysician.com on our contact form, or you can reach out to Kevin at thechangedphysician.com. Mine's a little bit more. What did I say?
Kevin.
Sorry, Dr. Kevin,
Dr.
but with
Kevin.
DR.
DR, yeah.
DR Kevin at thechangedphysician.com. Please correct that if you heard that. But anyway, we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook page for our Facebook Lives, where we chat about all kinds of things from the episodes before and the coming up week. And we look forward to talking to you soon. Take care.
Take care, folks.